Hello, everybody. You're listening to Wake Up with Patti Katter, and I have Gabe on my show again. Gabe Wren. He was on last week, and we are going to, I would say finish up, but I have a feeling he might be on again.
I feel like this is going to be a long process here. We
I
we
do
keep
too.
diving into more and more subjects.
I know it. It's crazy. The only other person that I did consecutive podcasting with was Adam Bird on the Decision Hour. We had a show
Mm-hmm.
together for, I don't know, a good year at least, maybe 2 years.
Yeah,
And
I've
then,
done that show a couple times with him.
yeah, yeah, he's a good egg.
Yeah, we did that one in Pennsylvania at the NRA show, the Great American Show. Last year we did one.
Oh, that's funny. He invited me to that. That would have been crazy if we all were there. I think we would have gotten into some major, major shenanigans.
Oh, shenanigans for sure. Yeah, no doubt. Anytime Adam and I are around, there's shenanigans
Oh
happening.
my gosh. Yeah, you wouldn't think so because he walks in a suit. That doesn't mean a thing.
Not at all. No. Yeah, we did that one. We did it from the booth because I have a friend that has a gun company I used to work for, and now I just kind of help him out every year. And so every February, I'm in Pennsylvania at that show. I've been there for years and years.
Interesting.
And there's a red carpet event that we're going to have in Lancaster for the Flipping Farm show. And that's going to be
Oh.
happening in February as well. I'm going to try to put the dates in line so that I can just go from there to there.
Oh yeah. I mean, you have to go from a farming show to a gun show to
I mean, it
whatever.
just makes sense. We're at the farm show complex.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Yeah. So I have a couple questions for you.
Okay.
First of all, have you ever heard of the immortal jellyfish?
No. Is this a real thing? I need to look this up. Hold on.
It's a real
Hold
thing.
on. I'm
Yeah,
looking this up.
it's a
The
real thing.
immortal jellyfish. Okay.
Yeah. So beats me how I actually came across it, except, well, I kind of
ADD.
remember. Yeah. I was looking up immortal things because I was going to be a vampire for Halloween again for the 100th time, but I decided against it. And I found that there's a immortal jellyfish, which
Interesting.
brings me to the question, if you could be immortal, would you want to be?
Well, interesting question. Because I do believe we are, whether it's this life or the next, we
Mhm.
are immortal. Our soul is immortal. It's not, we're not physically immortal here on this earth. But if I could be physically immortal, I don't think I would be.
I
I
mean,
think I'm actually looking forward to like what's next.
yeah, yeah, that too. Because I mean, really, if you have to be in the same place, like you can only go around the world so many times. It's really not
Right.
that, right? So,
Right. It would be cool to see like the evolution of history though, like to be a party to the birth of America and that, all of the things that's happened in our country at least, and even going back as far as, 2000 BC to see everything that's transpired through history. Like, that'd be kind of cool.
that's true. As long as you could be a certain age. Like I wouldn't want to be an immortal 200-year-old that looked like a 200-year-old.
Right, right. No, you'd have to be like, somewhere midlife, I think would be a good spot.
Yeah, I feel like I'm in a good spot now. Like,
Yeah, I
yeah.
wouldn't want to be a kid again
Oh no.
and be immortal, and I wouldn't want to be older and be immortal. I think that midlife range where you kind of know better and you've got all this experience behind you is a good spot to be.
Yeah, I agree. I thought I'd start out with this question just because, first of all, I can get a little weird. But secondly, because we left off on this question of last week, what was your death fear, right?
Oh, I have a new one, and I forgot about it last week, but it's a part of the buried alive bit.
Mhm.
But do you ever watch these guys caving and like they're like there's like this much room and they're like on their face and they're like
Yeah.
right? Nah, no thanks. That's another one. It's that guy that went down with all his buddies and they went to go back for him and then they couldn't find him and he just died a slow death, like over days and days and days stuck. And he couldn't do anything to get out. I mean, he was
Oh,
just like
yeah.
trapped, like this much room to where you can't move your head or anything. It's like being just pinned down the whole time.
Mhm. And if you've ever done wrestling, I don't know if you have, you know that feeling of being pinned down and you just can't get up. And like after a while, you're like, okay,
Like WWA or WWE,
yeah,
WWF.
yeah, I don't know.
No, I actually did. I did freestyle wrestling in high school. So, but yes, no, I understand that. I didn't have any older siblings, but I have a younger sister, so I did most of the holding down growing up. So yeah.
I bet you were a handful.
I, if I'd have grown up now, the school system probably would have pumped me full of medication.
Yeah.
Like I was all boy all the time, and you know, they just dealt with me. But I know it's I was a handful. I got so funny story. Two funny stories. I got kicked out of band in junior high. Yeah, I know.
How did you
And
get kicked out of it?
and then the other one was I got suspended in junior high as well in sixth grade for mooning the class. So,
Whoa.
yeah, yeah, and that's actually how I got removed from band as well. So there's a bit of a trend there in the sixth, seventh, and eighth grade where I found that hilarious, I guess. So,
Oh
you
my
know,
word. I never mooned anybody but my friend. My friend did. We were in, I think, probably like eighth or ninth grade, like in school still, like way back in the
hmm
day. And my friend's father was the township supervisor, and I won't say the name of the town, but he had a lot of friends who were police officers, and he would work third shift sometimes because he'd go in when they were working third shift at the police department, and he'd just go talk to his buddies or whatever. And her mom was gone one time to a vacation. Anyways, we were outside at I don't know, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, like running around her yard. She had an amazing yard. It had like a big trampoline and stuff. And for some crazy reason, she's like, come on, let's go hide in the ditch and scare the car that goes by. And I was like, no, because we're going to get in trouble. And she's like, okay, I'm going to moon him. So I was like, okay. So I'm hiding down in the ditch with her. And she really did it. I really didn't think she would do it. But it happened to be the police car that happened to have dad in it for a ride along.
that's hilarious. That reminds me of that movie. I think it was called Dirty Work.
I
And
haven't
like
seen.
it's really funny. There's a scene in there. I think it's from the 90s or late or early 2000s, but they're driving down the road and the guy's like, "Oh, right here, right here, right here." And so the guy, he gets his drawers down and he goes ready to, put his butt on the glass. And so he does, and he starts honking his horn so everybody will look, and then he just pulls over and parks right in front of everybody and gets
Oh
out.
man,
And his buddy's like getting out. He's like, he was supposed to keep going. He's supposed to keep going. It was really funny.
man, oh man. So we talked about your military experience last week.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
Marine Corps, Army, Air Force. Tell us a funny story from that time. Because I know
oh.
there's got to be a ton of them. And I totally put you on the spot. I probably should have prepped you for
No, no, there's a bunch of great stories. So two of my favorites actually that I still probably, I still tell to this day. One was a buddy of mine who was we lost him a little while back. His name was Dennis Jenkins, and he was when I got to my first duty station, he was my corporal, and I was a PFC at the time, and then promoted to Lance Corporal. But he was my corporal, and I was an MP when I first went in the Marine Corps. And so I got there and I checked in, and Jenkins and we had built this really great relationship, this bond, because he was in charge of me and I looked up to him, and so we had this great relationship. It was me, Dennis Jenkins, a guy named Terrence Brown, who is out of Chicago now, and Sergeant Seward, and those guys were kind of like they were like the guys that when I first got there. So anyway, Jenkins and I are he's the road supervisor one night, and this is now probably a year and a half into the base, and so we're really close. And we had these training bottles of pepper spray that like we would use for training. And so this guy came up to the gate from the pizza place. I don't know what it was back then, Papa John's or something, and and so he comes up and he's they have to stop at the gate, and I'm like, "Hey, where are you headed?" And he goes, "Oh, I've got an order at the it says I think it was building one or PMO building or whatever he said." And I said, "Who's it for?" And he said, "Looks like Sergeant Jenkins." And I was like, "Oh, let me see that thing." And I opened it up, to verify there's not any kind of bomb or contraband in it. And I just gave it a little and closed it and sent it on the way. And about, I don't know, maybe less than 10 minutes, I see lights and siren. I see lights
Oh,
and hear sirens. And Jenkins is flying from behind. He's back there. And I see the reflection, of course, in the glass in the building. This is like, we're probably 10, 11 o'clock at night or later. and the base for the most part is shut down. It's a base that's not existing anymore. It's called Tustin. It was out in California, real famous for the hangars, and one of them just burnt down recently. So Jenkins comes flying up, and he turns the car around, gets out, and his eyes and his nose and everything's just like he's just dying, right? Like he just hemorrhaging snot and water. Everything's just happening to his face. And he gets at it, goes, "You think you're funny, huh? You think you're funny?" And he starts making me do push-ups, right? And we had a relationship outside of work, but we also had that Lance Corporal relationship at that time. And so I burnt that line a little bit. And so he comes out there and he starts making me do push-ups. And I did push-ups for like, I don't know, a solid hour. But the whole time I was pushing, he was just crying, and like just destroyed and waving traffic. And we were laughing, I mean, the whole time. But he was trying to be serious, and it was a lot of fun. I miss that guy all the time. He was one of the good ones.
God.
Um, so
Man,
that's one.
I'm surprised he didn't shoot you with the pepper spray.
Oh no, he got me back later on. So we had this other gag where we would, the military, as you know, from all these conversations, I'm sure, is a lot of goofing off when there's downtime, right? And so we were pre-war. I mean, we're talking this is 1998, right? There was nothing going on, and so a lot of shenanigans, a lot of goofing around, a lot of brotherhood, being explored. And he got me back. You take a Taco Bell sauce packet and you cut a small slit in one side,
Mhm.
put the straw in, stick it back down in the cup, you know.
Oh, I haven't heard
It's
that one. I'll
Oh
have to
yeah, no, it works
remember.
really well. It's really good. It's a really good one. But
Let's get
so
Adam Bird on that one.
well, he's gonna see this.
Maybe. Let's see if he really watches it, you guys.
Okay. I doubt he will. I doubt he will. He says he doesn't like your show anyway, so
Because I'm doing better. No, I'm just joking.
wow.
I love Adam.
Yeah. No, but so yeah, so he got me back that way. But we constantly, for years played games with each other, and just we were at that duty station, and then we both went to Miramar, the next duty station. And then, 2001 came around, and I think he got out just before me, and then I got out after him, and then we kind of kept in contact for a number of years, and it's been, I think, almost 10 years now since he died. But a super great guy. I mean, just one of those guys I look back fondly on in the Marine Corps. And yeah, so that's one guy. That's one funny story. Do you want another one, or you want me to stop?
Yeah, I love these stories from the 1900s.
Oh wow, the 1900s. Okay, well, let me take you into the modern era, into the 2000s.
Okay.
So 2001.
Ooh.
Yeah. So there's a kid that I work with. He's a younger guy. Same kind of a situation. He works for me. I'm the corporal now. He's the PFC, the Lance Corporal, and he failed a field day inspection on his barracks room, and so of course that falls on me, right? So that's my fault now, and I ended up having him. He lived on the second floor. I would have him take all of his stuff down to the bottom deck. And then he would have to clean his entire room, put it all back, and call me. And this went on all night. Like every couple hours, every hour, I'd get a phone call. I'd drive up to the base. I'd check his room. I'd inspect it, find something wrong with it intentionally, and then I'd leave and make him do it again. And we did this all night, all night. And what's really interesting about that is that's a cool story because that guy just reached out to me a week ago,
Wow.
and I haven't talked to him since probably 2001 or more. Maybe we connected once or twice over the years, but it's been a long, long time, probably 20 years at least. And we had that conversation, and he's actually in the film industry now. His name is Reed Carpenter, and he's killing it. He's doing some great stuff. And so we formed a bond way back then, and he calls me up and he's like, "Hey man, I want to work with you. Let's do something." And so now we're exploring opportunities together. So cool dude, but
Yeah,
uh,
that's always good when somebody that is, a good memory pops up in your life after years. I don't know
mhm.
about you, but lately I have had some strange full circle things hitting me from,
Hmm.
long time ago. And I think it's because social media a lot, because, people will try to find their old friends. And I mean, I've had people find me that I went to kindergarten with. Like,
Wow.
yeah. So I'm talking like, a few years ago. And
Just a
so
couple.
Yeah, that's interesting. They're not bad memories. It's just kind of funny. Like, oh, you remember this person, and oh yeah, I remember getting chocolate milk with you in, preschool.
Oh yeah.
You know.
Yeah,
Uh,
I've only got one really close friend from high school that I still talk to. Well, actually from even before that, fourth grade, we were both on on the Pirates, the baseball team, the little league team. And he and I have been friends ever since. My closest friend, he's like a brother. His family, my family, we're all really close people. And
Mhm.
outside of that, I've only connected with a few people from, like back in the day. But
Yeah. So, okay, holidays are coming up. This show is airing the week before Thanksgiving.
which one?
So this one, right? Is it, or is it the next? Did
Uh,
Thanksgiving happen?
no, Thanksgiving is the 20
So,
something. So Little Women's Christmas, it comes out on the
yes.
23rd.
Okay. So,
Flipping Farms comes out in March.
okay. So this show comes out the day after Thanksgiving on Black Friday.
This show,
This one.
the one
Yeah,
that we're doing
this one right now. So if you're
after,
listening, it's Black Friday or after Black Friday, right before Christmas.
you
So,
know,
yeah.
Black Friday is not the same anymore. It used to be back when we were younger, it was like you look at the ads and everybody was excited and you'd go wait in line for a Game Boy, or like something that was happening and there'd be fights and people were just, duking it out.
Yeah.
Now like everybody just runs their stuff early.
And gets online. Like I noticed on Amazon, they're already having Black Friday sales
Oh yeah.
now.
Yeah. It's like
That's
they
so
do it
lit.
all year.
Yeah. I remember I
Yeah.
really wanted a Cabbage Patch Kid one year.
I
And
remember those.
so, like, there were lines and lines. We had this store, it was called Myers, and my mom's friend worked there. And my mom's friend, like, took a bunch of Cabbage Patch Kids and hid them back in the storage room. And she marked them up, like, I don't know, $20 or something. And, like, kept some aside. Anyways, I got my first Cabbage Patch Kid. And then I ended up getting 12 of them all together in 2 years because
Wow.
I wanted 12 kids. How many kids did you want when you were younger?
Me?
Yeah.
Not 12.
I wanted 12. I wanted like a team of kids.
No, no, I never thought about that many kids.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, I have three. I'm good. They're all grown.
yeah, yeah, I don't think I ever had like a set amount. I think that might be a girl thing, like to
Yeah.
think you want. I think that guys don't really think about how many. Maybe some do. I never did. I just figured, you just do what you're doing and kids show up and then
They just pop up from thin air.
yeah, yeah, you just get married and you have some kids and that's what you do.
I had a friend, she's the youth pastor's daughter, and she's probably listening to this because we're still friends. We've been friends since like fifth grade. And she used to think that if a bumblebee bit you, you would get pregnant. So
Oh
one time we were
wow.
on the playground and a bumblebee came like zooming over by us and she was screaming her head off and running. And everybody's like, why are you freaking out? She's like, I don't want to get pregnant. Yeah.
Where does that even come from? Like
Yeah,
who
I don't know.
told her that? We need to talk to her. I need to know where that came
It
from.
was the birds and the bees. I asked her, I was like, why did you think that? I asked her just a couple of years ago because I remembered that.
That's really funny.
Yeah.
Oh.
All right. So let's play Would You Rather.
Okay.
All right. So, would you rather walk around with a popcorn kernel stuck in your tooth or a rock in your shoe?
Hmm. I think The Rock. Like, wait, how long am I doing this?
I mean, 3 days.
Ooh,
Because obviously you don't have I mean, a popcorn kernel is pretty
that's
big. You're
super
not going to be missing
annoying.
a tooth.
Super annoying.
Yeah.
Like a whole kernel or just a sliver of one, because that's
A
really
whole
annoying
one,
too.
because now you're missing a
Hmm.
whole, like you're missing half of a tooth or something also now at this point.
I think that would irritate me more than The Rock. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I could deal with The Rock, like his little side foot, something.
Yeah. So this is the most random show I've had in a long time. So what is the craziest thing that has happened? And I totally skipped subjects. What's the totally crazy thing that happened to you while you were filming?
Hmm. So the first one of those, would have been I was working on the Little Women movie with my buddy Brandon from True Brand Entertainment. It's his film, and I was working with him, and I looked over, and Danica McKellar was there. She was, on the Wonder Years. And I just
Remember her,
remember,
right? When was it Winnie?
yeah, Winnie
Yeah.
Cooper.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I looked over and I was just like,
Wow.
that is that Winnie Cooper? Like, I mean, I don't
Every
know. It was
boy
just
crush back then.
everybody. Oh yeah, every kid during that time frame, every guy, that was. And I just remember thinking like, how random.
Mhm.
Like my life is super random. I
Yeah.
mean, it's just a series of random events. And I just remember thinking like, this is so random. And so I went and talked to her and got a picture with her and Trevor, one of the actors, Trevor Donovan, who does a lot of films. See him in a lot of stuff. You see him a lot at Christmas, and he's done some other stuff, some cowboy stuff, and he's on a new one called When Hope Calls, I think is what it's called. It'll be coming out. I think it's a series, if I remember right. But anyway, I just thought it was super random. But from that, I met Dion, who's a writer, and she's the writer on Flipping Farms and my co-producer now. But how I got to Flipping Farms is even more random. So I got a phone call to go do the show as a camera operator. And then once we got here, the producers of the show were like, "Hey, you kind of got the pulse of everything. Why don't you just go ahead and you kind of just direct the scenes and the things that we're doing?" And I was like, "Okay." So I got kind of, halfway promoted to director, camera operator kind of a guy. And then they ended up getting pulled away after that on a film. And so I kind of took over as the producer of the show with their blessing. They were like, "Hey man, go run with it. Do your thing. Try to make it work." And so I started, just taking over the show and producing it and promoting it and pushing it and doing everything that I, from like just here I am getting hired as a camera operator, and now I'm, a producer on this show, which is crazy.
So when you were in the military, you probably didn't really have a idea that you were even going to be in this position. Because I know we talked last week, you went into the music business a little bit. And
Sure.
by the way, I stalked your social media and you have a really good voice.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I enjoy singing. I still do it every once in a while. Sorry, I got something in my eye. Not sure what. Probably a lash. I do it every once in a while, but I don't pursue it as a career anymore. I just I love music. It's a part of who I am. It's part of how I grew up. My mom and dad were singers and did the church band, all that kind of stuff. And back in the day, and sidetrack.
Oh, about how you didn't think that when you were in the military, you'd probably be
Oh.
in film.
Oh no. No, I think like every Marine that, we think we're gonna, do a lifetime career in the military and, you know, go out in a hail of gunfire, in some major battle and get a Congressional Medal of Honor or something. I think that's a lot of Marines feel that way. But no, I didn't. I never had a clue. I mean, even the way that I got into the film industry was super random. Like I told you last time, was it was just kind of by happenstance.
Mhm.
And yeah, no, I never thought I'd be doing this at all.
I mean, you did bring up another topic that you briefly touched on at the beginning of the show, which is you were kicked out of band class.
Oh yeah, that's because I got sent to the band leader's office. So imagine, if you will, okay, there's this band room, semicircle, all the people are on the instruments. Let's say you're one of those band members. So on this side of the glass, there's an office and there's a big piece of glass. Well, I stood up on that desk and I went to the window with my cheeks. And so that
Oh, yeah, yeah,
that
yeah. Yeah.
so so that
The,
happened.
the funniest things have happened in band rooms or band classes. I think that there should be a book about it just because I've heard so many stories coming out of that band room. I mean, you picture a bunch of musicians and I mean, kind of you picture some kids like back in our day, at least in my band, it was kind of dorky to be in a
Oh
band.
yeah.
It's crazy because I love music so much and I love listening to bands and oh my gosh, I love it.
I
Um,
actually didn't want to be in band, but it
right.
was one of the electives. It was like either that or like, I don't know, Spanish or something, right?
Yes.
Right? So I was like, I'll just go with the band. And I wanted to play drums, but my mom was like, no, you're gonna play the trumpet. And that was, I guess, funny because Gabriel and the horn and the whole thing. So
The little angel wings and the halo.
yeah, yeah. So I learned how to play the trumpet and did not that's not I wanted to be in a rock band. I didn't want to be in like band.
Guess what instrument I played?
Okay, hold on. Let's do this like, am I getting close? I was gonna say I was gonna say either oboe or clarinet.
Yeah, it was the flute, and it did not sound good, I don't think. I did play the piano though. My mom took me to piano lessons every single week for a couple years until I told her one day I never learned to read one note of music. I played by ear.
Well, yeah, I don't read music either.
Yeah.
So I've learned being in Nashville, I've had to learn the number system. It's called the Nashville numbers, which is basically assigning values with numbers so that the chart can be transcribed through different different starting points. So if you start in like if you do a 1 4 5 and a 6 minor, that translates all the way across the note spectrum as long as the so like let's say you're G, C, D, and E minor, like that's like a 1 4 5 type of structure.
Mhm.
Then you can take that and you're like, oh, we need to do this in the key of G. Well, then now everything just shifts over and everything stays the same. Nothing changes structurally. You don't have to reconfigure a whole sheet of music. It's just everybody knows now we're in G, and then you just go boom, boom, boom.
Boy, so we've been through your military, we've been through some of your childhood. At the beginning of the show last week, we talked about your birth and how
Oh
you
yeah.
your mother's womb.
Mm.
So we talked about dying, which I want to get into that a little bit more, okay? Because nobody else has had the guts to talk about dying with me. And I'm not morbid, but everybody dies and nobody talks about it.
Right.
And I think that we should talk about that. And I think we should talk about suicide too, because suicide is a big deal. I mean, those listening know that my father took his own life, and it was
Mm.
7 months after my mom passed. And it completely shook our world. People always have told me, like, oh, I'm so sorry. Like, he was in a bad spot. And they kind of okay it, right? So they okay suicide. But in my opinion, it's not okay. And I think more people should say,
Right.
dude, it's not okay because you're actually, in my eyes, I feel like it's a very selfish thing, even though
Sure.
it's also I think you even said it before, like last week, it's or there's a temporary problem and you give it up.
It's a permanent solution to a temporary problem.
There you go. Yeah.
Right.
So tell me more.
Yeah. I mean, I've been down that thought process. A lot of guys go down that thought process, not just veterans, but guys in general,
Yeah.
that you see a lot of memes out there about like, if you're a guy and you're hurting, just remember nobody cares. Like that's a meme that's out there.
That messed up.
Well,
Yeah.
for a long time, and not that I disagree with this,
Mhm.
but there is a immeasurable amount of pressure that's put on men to be a certain way, to, act a certain way, which I don't disagree with. I mean, men should be men. We should carry the
Right.
weight. We should provide. We should be, that side of a family unit. There is that.
Mhm.
I think that we have as male and female. I think that there are roles that we're better suited to fill. Like I'm not going to be a stay-at-home dad. There's no way that's ever going to happen, right?
Mhm.
I'm going to be the provider. I'm going to go get the work. I'm going to go make the money. I'm going to go do that job, the hunter, the gatherer. I wasn't built that way to stay at home and do that job. And I think there's a lot of pressure that comes along with that.
There's so much pressure that comes with that. I have a friend, he was telling me that basically his wife would threaten him. I mean, really,
Hmm.
at the end of the day, like she would say, like, you're not doing good enough. You're not being a good dad because you're always working. And then,
What?
yeah, right? Like that
That's
drives me crazy when I hear that because
that's the job.
yeah. And then they complain like we don't have enough money because you're not working hard enough, but you're also not a good dad
Yeah.
because you're working too much.
Yeah, there is a point where, situations feel really impossible. And some men check out. Some men decide that that's the only course of action that they have, and it's a sad thing. And like I said, I've been down that. It happened to me after Afghanistan, but it was because I think one of the big things, and this is something I would really love to hit on, is that what they call PTSD or depression or all these different things that happens to veterans,
Mhm.
it's not because of what we went through. Like we're mentally tough. We can go through those things, right? What it is when you get out of the military, the reason there's such a high suicide rate after the military is because we've lost our identity,
Mhm.
right? So at one point you're this like go get him, tough guy, got a uniform, there's respect, there's a crew of people you count on, you've got this brotherhood. And then you get out into the civilian world where everybody's in it for themselves and the mission doesn't matter and the guy next to you doesn't matter. And so a lot of guys spiral because of an identity issue. And I think that's a really hard thing to deal with. And you have to find your identity. And once you find your identity, then you're okay.
Mhm.
And that's what happened to me.
Yeah, I think it happens to all of us, and I think it happens to us more than once in life, a lot of times.
Mm-hmm.
I was having a conversation with one guy. He was saying that every 10 years, there's like a cycle in his life where he goes through like almost an identity crisis where
Sure.
he's working the same job and then he gets tired of it and he doesn't want to do it anymore, but he doesn't feel like he has another option. And so he goes through this spiral like every decade. So with that this actually 2 days ago, my friend told me that her daughter's ex-boyfriend and father of her children killed himself. And he had
Jeez.
4 kids and they're all little, like under 12, I think. And I just think, man, for me, I was an adult when it happened and with my dad, and I was so upset. And I've actually never went into the detail, so I'm going to do it now,
Mm,
apparently. But I was so upset because I felt like my dad was always like the pillar in my life. He was always that strong guy. He never
right.
showed weakness. I don't think I ever, one time, ever saw my dad cry. He was like the strongest person I thought in my like ever. But there
Right.
were a couple little warning signs that I didn't really think about or pay too much attention to. And one of them was he said he was not going to do the holidays this that year that he passed. And the holidays were always a really big deal in our family. I just thought he meant that he just didn't want to do anything. But we were like, yeah, we are. We're going to do Thanksgiving and my brother's going to go pick up this platter from the house and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, the last night I talked to him, he's just like, I don't really want to do the holidays. And it's like, Dad, we're going to do the holidays. I'll be there the day after tomorrow. And that night he literally decided he just really wasn't going to do the holidays. And for
Mm,
me, I probably should have known that because my dad, and I look back in the would have, should have, but
sure.
I've never heard my dad say something that he actually didn't do.
Right.
I just thought he meant he just wasn't going to do the holidays. But
Mm,
like going back and analyzing it, I'm like, oh man, that was his definitely his way of saying something. And then he also brought a couple of things up to me like about a month before that about some things. And so if we're heading into these holidays, we're on Black Friday right now. Holidays are probably one of the hardest times a year for this. So
yeah, I'm sorry about your dad. I actually didn't even know that.
yeah,
That's
I mean, I finally have come to be able to talk about it. I did go through weird emotions, like from
hmm
extreme sadness to like not understanding to being really pissed off. And I'm still kind
yeah.
of like that pissed phase of
Right, right,
pissed because he left me, he left my kids,
right.
he is my only person in my life that I completely ever 1,000% trusted to know that he would bury a body if somebody hurt me. Like he was that kind of
Oh
guy.
yeah, 100%. And I
Um,
think I think good dads are that way. I mean, I have a daughter, and you know, so there's a few reasons that I never took that road,
and
right? I
that's what
mean,
I want to know. Like, where were
I've
you?
I've I've been all the way to the bottom of that barrel, all the way to the bottom of that bottle. I've been there, and I think it's for me what saved me was finding God. I think that's where I found that I found grace, I found forgiveness in who I was as a person, and that changed me. And I realized that my life wasn't my own. I didn't create it, and to me, I didn't have the right to take it. And then I have a daughter and a son who, would have been devastated without a father.
That's the thing, right? Yeah.
And that was I looked at this little girl, and she's 12 right now, and I look at her and I'm like, I, I don't want someone else to raise her. Like I couldn't allow that. I couldn't that thought, and even my son is somebody else teaching my son to be a man, those thoughts are what I looked at it and I'm like, I couldn't, I couldn't do that, you know, but it was very real for a very, very long time. I was struggling like a lot of people do. And I'll tell you what helped me too was two other vets. One veteran named Ronnie who worked at the VA in Chico, California, and he was a Vietnam vet who had gone back when the Gulf War broke out, and so he did big gaps in service. And then the other was a guy named Dick Roberts who was also a Vietnam vet, and those guys were instrumental in getting me back into society and reintegrating. And it's not that I had a super hard deployment. It's not that a lot of crazy stuff happened. It's just you go to deployments and you go in the military, and like I said, you come out and you lose your identity, you know, especially when that was your life plan. Like I'm
Mhm.
going to do 30 something years and then I'm going to get out and retire. Like I did 13. Now what? So, yeah,
Yeah, I think people also don't realize the long-term changes that can be made by just taking small little short-term steps, right?
sure.
So a couple years ago, I remember waking up one morning and I wasn't going to kill myself, but have you ever been to the place where you're like, I woke up again? Like, I'm still here. Why?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I've also been to the place where I pray to God and I'm like, God, just take me out tonight.
Yeah.
Like, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not going to do it myself. Could we just speed it up?
Or I was talking to another friend of mine and he's like, yeah, have you ever just laid there and you're just like, okay, trying to will your heart just to like go to sleep forever.
So I think that, I think a lot of people deal with that, but not a lot of people are going to talk about it because you don't want to be perceived as weak or you don't want to be perceived as crazy, like, but the truth is it's just human, you know, life is hard, things are hard. I think the biggest thing is you need to reach out, and the other thing on the other side of that coin is check on people, you
Mhm.
know. I have a monster Rolodex of contacts
Mhm.
and I genuinely care about all of them. I give my number out to vets all the time, to other people that they're struggling and I say, "Hey, I don't care what time it is.
Mhm.
If you're on that road, call me.
Mhm.
Let's talk." You know?
Yeah.
Let's get you out of that. Let's move your situation. Let's change things. Whatever we got to do. Like I think it's such a sad thing when I hear about it. And it happens like it happened to my neighbor. My neighbor killed himself one day. And it was one of those, the day before him and I were hanging out. Super nice guy. Always came over, always lended a hand. It's always the really, really good people, that you meet, and then you're surprised. It's never like the guy, like I always, and this is humoristically morbid, but it's never the guy who everybody thinks is going to kill himself,
Mhm.
right? It's never the guy that you meet and you're like, oh, that dude's going to off himself. You know, it's never that guy. It's
Right.
the people
Because
who are well put together.
yeah, usually the people who really end up doing it are the ones who don't talk about it because they
Correct.
want the attention on that for that.
Correct.
I
Yeah.
just watched a video yesterday actually, and it was two guys sitting in a ball field and one is having a great time, just like cheering and
Oh, I saw that.
yeah. And then the other guy next to him, he looked like he was really grouchy and he looked depressed.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But it was the guy who was happy and cheering,
Mm-hmm.
ended up
Yep.
killing himself.
Yeah. That's where they flipped the script at the end of that. Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
And as a filmmaker, I anticipated that because it said watch to the end, and I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
you know what
Yeah.
I mean? But no, it is. It's very valid. It's sometimes like you got to look at a guy like Robin Williams, right? He was a comedian. He was very outgoing, very amazing person, from what I understand. And that's the guy. That's the type of person that makes that choice. And so even those people, you need to check on them and just like I ask some of my buddies all the time, like, I mean, hey man, where's your head at?
Hmm.
How are things? Not how you doing? You doing all right? It's where's your head at? We need to know. I think we need to know each other. The government, social media, all these things have done really good isolating us. You know,
Yes.
we
Yeah.
isolate. We don't have community like we used to. That whole village mentality, we don't have that anymore. Our neighborhoods, I mean, I know three people on my street, you
Yeah.
know. I wouldn't know if any of them are struggling.
Man, I remember when COVID first happened, and in Florida, we really hardly had COVID, like anywhere. But I remember like maybe the first week, all the stores are closed down and all that stuff. And if we were sitting outside, we could hear our neighbors talking to each other and laughing and having fun because everything was closed and nobody was running around and their
Right.
workplaces were closed. And that was the best time that I remember in a long time. And it's the only good thing that came out of COVID. But, that was kind of unique. I know two guys' stories, and I'll hurry up because I want this show to be more about you. But one guy forever changed my life, and it's one of the biggest reasons I continue to advocate for military veterans. I met this guy Joey, and it's Joey Hart. He was in the hospital at Womack crying the first time I met him, and
Mm.
he was on the floor because he had broken his foot in Afghanistan. Long story short, he ended up getting addicted to painkillers while he was in the military. And he tried to kill himself a couple of times while he was still in the military in the Warrior Transition Battalion, who, by
Hmm.
the way, treated him like complete shit. And I will gladly talk about that these days. I used to be nervous to talk about that, but I'll gladly talk about
Oh,
that to
no,
anyone to hear
I,
it.
I know a guy, my best friend, who's still a great friend of mine today, was sent home because he got hit a bunch of times in an ambush, and same thing. It was unreal,
Yeah.
unreal.
Yeah, this Warrior Transition Battalion at Fort Bragg was awful. And I know why they changed the name now because it's like, okay, they changed it to Fort Liberty because you can't really Google that crap anymore. But
Hmm.
they had their Purple Heart veterans listed on a whiteboard that said Bishes, Bishes instead of bitches.
Mm.
Purple Heart veterans. And they're having, they had cadre that never even deployed. But anyways, he did not get treated right after he came back, and he was suicidal, I believe, because of that. And years later, I continued to talk to him and help advocate for him and helped him get into treatment and things. But the last time I talked to him, he said he was checking himself into inpatient. He was really nervous. He was crying. I was crying because I was really nervous. But he said, am I going to be okay? I'm going to go check myself in here. This should help me, right? And I remember saying, yes, absolutely do it. He checked himself out 3 days early and went home and killed himself. And that was the most devastating blow, I think. And it is still the reason that I continue to advocate because he said on that last call, do you promise that you'll continue to help? And I promise if I can get help, I'll do the same thing. So that's
Mm.
kind of where I'm at. The other one, though, had a better story. My friend Adam, and he lets me share his story, not Adam Bird, a different one. He texted me in the middle of the night, and I just happened to look at my phone and it lit up, and it was weird. And he said, thanks for everything you did. I'm sorry it wasn't enough. So I called him up and I was like, what are you doing? It's 4 o'clock in the morning. And he's like, he didn't say anything for a good minute. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And then finally he said, I just had a gun in my mouth. And I was like, why are you doing that? Why don't you come get coffee? Because I didn't know what to say. Like change his mindset. And he's like, what? And I was like, come have coffee. So he came over and had coffee and we went to the hospital. He checked himself in and he's doing really good today. So
That's amazing. I
yeah.
mean, and that simple gesture, you didn't know what to do, but you did it, is probably very much the reason, one, that you answered your phone, and two, that you intervened, and God puts those people in our lives to do that type of stuff, these intersecting points, like you look at, I mean, you look back on things and you go, why did I meet that person? Well, it's going to have a value. Nothing's by chance. I don't believe in chance. I don't believe in accidents. I really honestly believe that we meet the people we meet for a reason. And so you're instrumental in that man's story, and that's amazing.
Well, it's also a testament of you may not be able to save every single person, but what's that starfish scenario? But you can maybe save that one, to
Sure,
don't give up. I'm sure there's a lot of listeners out there who unfortunately has lost somebody to suicide.
sure,
But the next time somebody comes up in your life, like don't just think it's completely hopeless because I don't know about you, but I know that if somebody's going to do it, it's not my fault. They're going to do it.
right.
But at the same time, I did kind of blame myself a few times with a couple different situations, just not sure if you could really do anything you try and it doesn't work. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's part of, the survivor's guilt. It's like you always think, oh, I could have done more. I could have done something. I could have, whatever it is. But the fact is you couldn't have. Like those people make up their minds and it is in my opinion a very selfish act,
Mhm.
as well. It is very selfish because you're choosing to check out of everybody else's life. You're choosing to check out, and you for some reason think the world would be better if you weren't there. And that's it's absolutely incorrect. You
Mhm.
know, it's not.
Yeah.
I don't wish death on anyone.
Mhm.
Like not even the people I don't like. You know what I mean? Like I wouldn't wish that on anybody. I think that is you just there's no coming back from that, you
Mhm.
know? That
Yeah, and you never know who it's going to affect, right? So even if it's the biggest jerk in the whole entire world, they might have that one family member who loves them. So,
well, no, no, I know. And then you also got to look at it like there's a ripple effect, right? So so if you take yourself out of the game, what if down the road you would have been better and you met somebody who was in that position and you stopped them or you helped them, well that now that the ripple effect has long lasting ripple. It's an endless ripple,
mhm.
you know, that one
Yeah.
action.
Yeah, and even if you think nobody cares about you, still somebody's going to find you. How's that going to affect that person, that law
Right.
enforcement person or whoever,
Sure.
you know?
Yeah. Oh no, it is. It's devastating in a full 360. There's no good that comes from it. And so that's why I'm always an advocate as well, like for other people. It's like if you're struggling, please call somebody.
Mhm.
Call
Yeah,
me. I don't
and
I don't care.
right. And let's not make it so taboo to talk about death and dying. And
Mm-mm.
I think that's another big part of it because, you go to the doctor and they ask, I've been in veteran appointments with them, and
Right.
the doctor will say, like, are you suicidal? Have you been suicidal? And they're like, nope, I'm great. Because it's not,
Well,
it
yeah.
most people,
That's
the doctor's not exactly suicidal right at that moment?
sure. And that's those it's just the VA doesn't do a great job with veterans specifically. And I think that our system gets it wrong too because we put labels on people, and it's permanent labels. It's like, oh, he's suicidal. Okay, it's kind of like being sick, right? You might be sick right now, but eventually you're going to get over it, right? You're going to get past it. And I think with the right medication, not pills, but the right help,
Mhm.
which is a form of medication, you you get over things, you get better, and you do better and you thrive. But if we just put people in a box and tell them that they're depressed and they have suicidal tendencies, and then we pharmaceutically induce them
Mhm.
into that mindset forever, they never get better. I,
Absolutely. How long were you suicidal before you reached out for help, would you say? And then did anybody else know? Did your family actually recognize it, or did you kind of hide it?
oh, I hit it, but I never see. Here's the thing: is um, I resisted the idea of getting help, you
Mhm.
know, and until I listened, and it was like, well, maybe you should go talk to somebody, right? And at that same time, I was getting hit from both sides because I just met this guy named Dick Roberts, and he was flying model airplanes, like little remote control airplanes,
Yeah.
and we spent a lot of time together doing that. And he was teaching me how to fly and all this stuff, and he just became like this amazing mentor in my life. And he was like, well, maybe you should talk to somebody. And then I was hearing it somewhere else, and I was so lost at that time that I remember having that really like introspective conversation with myself, going, maybe you should talk to somebody because we're not okay right now, you
Mhm.
know? And I did. But I don't know if anybody thought I was suicidal. Maybe they did, and they just never said anything.
Mhm.
But it was definitely on the table for a while. I mean, I would say a solid couple of years of my life where it was like a thought, like, well, is today the day? You
Mhm.
know,
Yeah.
it's a hopeless feeling.
What are some things that you do when you start getting like in a funk? Do you kind of try to change it, or you just go in that funk and keep
Um,
being funky?
God, no, I seek counsel. I seek counsel. I'll talk to my dad, if I'm having a hard time, and I'll talk to, Steve Koza, my buddy from the Marine Corps, the recruiter, who's still instrumental in my life. I talk to those guys and they help you out. They get you through things, and I talk to God, a lot. all day. Like, all right, what are we doing here? Why are we doing this? I think that's an intricate part of my life is having the faith that I have and knowing that there is hope no matter what the situation is.
Yeah, and I kind of went the other way. I kind of back, not towards Satan. I'm not saying like I'm a
You're
devil
like,
worshiper or
I'm a
nothing.
Satanist.
No. Uh,
Great. All right. Well, this was fun. Thanks, Patty. We're gonna
no,
get off this call.
no. But I definitely stopped going to church and things, and just decided for me just to have like a more of a personal relationship with God instead of getting involved with too many churchy things and stuff. And that's a whole nother show.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks for listening, guys. You can find me at Gabriel_Wren WRE, and you can follow us Flipping Farms Show.
All right. Thanks. Thanks everybody for listening. Until next time, definitely go back through the archives